To the July 9th, 2019 Board of Commissioners meeting. Commissioner Ott is at a conference today, so he'll not be with us. I want to welcome Pastor Marty Godfrey from the Burnt Hickory Baptist Church to lead us in our opening invocation, and then Lieutenant Rob Hiller will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. Those who are willing and able, please stand.
All right, let's pray. Father, the psalmist writes, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name." And that is because we see in your word that your mercies are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. So, Father, we come to you this morning, just acknowledge that you are in control. Father, too often we ask you to bless us when we have been immensely blessed. And Father, more than a blesser, we need a Savior. We need to be saved not just from the wiles of this culture, but from ourselves, from our own selfishness, our lack of knowledge, wisdom. And Father, we know in your word you say that if anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all without judgment. And so, Father, at times like this, we come to you and we acknowledge our lack of wisdom and our reliance upon you. So, Father, thank you, Lord. You have called us to care for the resources of this community, to be stewards accountable to you. Thank you for the great resources for the people, for those who serve in leadership, for those who care and watch after us and put their lives on the line. And, Father, we come to you with a heart of gratitude for that. We ask you now, Father, to be with us during this meeting. And Father, we rely upon you. We don't ask you just to bless us, but we ask you to be pleased with the thoughts, with the actions, the decisions that are made, that they will bring you glory. And so we ask your presence with us today, and that you might receive glory from all that is said and done. We pray in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Lieutenant. Okay, we have one presentation this morning, and County Manager, would you like to lead us on that?
Morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm filling in for a member of the GFOA this morning who I believe might be having some difficulty navigating the local traffic. She is here, okay. Oh, thank you. Come on. I'm sorry, I did not see you and I apologize. Come on up, please.
There's someone confused here, but it's not you.
Good
Welcome.
morning. I am honored to be here today on behalf of the Government Finance Officers Association to present the Distinguished Budget Document Award to Cobb County and your Budget Division Manager, Mrs. Susan Revel, and her staff. Would they like to come up?
Absolutely, they would. And Bill, you want to come up with them too? And we're going to have the board come down and join them. If you'd all please join them, please. Thank you.
The Distinguished Budget Presentation Award Program has been in place since 1984, and in its 35 years of operation, it has become widely recognized as an indicator of excellence in government budgeting. To earn the award, the budget document must pass or must meet a set of nationally recognized standards and guidelines, which are designed to assess whether or not the document serves as a policy document, a financial plan, an operations guide, and a communications device. It is the highest form of recognition in government budgeting and is a significant achievement for Cobb County. In fact, in the state of Georgia in 2018, only 12 counties received this award, which is a further testament to the hard work and dedication of Mrs. Revel and her staff. The award for your fiscal years 2019-2020 biennial budget is the 28th time Cobb County has received this award. The Government Finance Officers Association hopes that this award to Cobb County will serve as an example and will encourage others to strive for the same high standards in their budget documents. Therefore, it is my privilege on behalf of the Government Finance Officers Association to present Cobb County, Mrs. Revel, and her staff the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Truly another reflection of the incredible staff we have here at Cobb County. All right, we have a couple public hearings today, and I'm going to have Bill Blokeman come up here and make some comments before we do the first public hearing on the proposed property tax increase as defined by Georgia law.
Thank you for the caveat, sir. Okay, so some administrative issues that we've got to get out of the way here first. We did advertise in the MDJ on July 1 and July 2nd. There was a issue with the sizing on July 1, so we had a follow-up ad on July 2nd to meet our requirements, and that it does fall within our legal requirements to do so. We also are having our first public hearing this morning. Our second public hearing will be on July 16th at a special called meeting at 6:30. And our third public hearing and adoption of the millage will be on July 23rd at the regularly scheduled 7 p.m. BOC meeting. Okay, so with this, I just want to show you the comparison of where we were last year for 2018, because remember, we're setting the millage for 2019, and that will be the basis for the FY20 budget. So all of the millage rates that we have up here are exactly the same as we had in the previous year. And I want to show you the digest growth as we've seen it recover from the recession. And just to give you a little bit of a comparison here, Cobb County's millage rate in total, excluding the school board, is 11.45 mils. Gwinnett is the second closest at 13.319 mils. Fulton is at 15.49 mils, and DeKalb County is at 20.81 mils. Now again, the numbers that I gave you for the other counties are based on their millage rate for last year, because everyone else is just like us, are going through the process of setting their millage for FY19. So with that, I would ask, sir, that you open the public hearing.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Just to give you the ground rules, unlimited number of speakers, 3 minutes for your time limit for your remarks. And we ask you to please let us know who you are and where you live. So that, I now declare open this first public hearing on the 2019 proposed property tax increase as defined by Georgia law. Would anyone like to make some comments?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Donald Barth, City of Marietta. Now, we're talking about the budget. All of.
This is the millage rate. We'll be doing the
just
budget the next one.
rate.
Right.
All right, then, I want to tell you about your
They'll be right behind you on this
Thank
one.
you,
Don't go anywhere. No, for the budget, I mean. Okay, all right. All right. Seeing none, I now declare this first public hearing closed on the 2019 proposed property tax increase as defined by Georgia law. Now, the second public hearing will be on the budget, and I'm going to have some prepared comments on that too to give you some background on where we are, okay?
Okay, so you'll notice the budget schedule here is the exact same as the millage schedule. We want to combine these to show that these are paired together because the FY20 budget is going to be based on the millage rate that we set for FY19. So the first public hearing is again this morning, second is on July 16th, and the third and the adoption is on July 23rd. So the way we have these scheduled for the July 23rd adoption is the millage will go first. If the millage passes, that is the basis for the budget, then the budget item will come forward. So that's kind of how we have to lay these out. Some of the assumptions that we have for the FY20 budget is a flat millage rate. So for the general fund purposes, if you had a homestead exemption, even if you were reassessed, you would be paying the same in the general fund that you would be paying, that you would have paid last year. Where you have the flexibility or the increases would be on the fire and debt service funds that we have within the county. Also, we're assuming a 3.4% growth in the net digest for FY20 compared to the 4.8% growth in net digest that we had for FY19. We're also looking at a 1% reduction in the water transfer. So currently for FY19, we're transferring 10% of the water revenues back to the general fund. We are going to reduce that to 9% in FY20 and continue to look at making reductions to that in the future. One of our focus areas has been in capital replacement within the general fund. During the recession, that was an item that was cut from the budget, and we became heavily reliant on SPLOST and ended up deferring a lot of capital maintenance and replacement items that were not included in SPLOST. In 2019 was the first year that we were able to restore $1.5 million to the board as undesignated capital, and we brought a list before you to designate that out based on departmental requests. We are increasing that to $3 million, so a $1.5 million increase over previous year. And then effective October 1, we are going to be eliminating senior fees for in-Cobb or in-county residents for all senior service facilities. The senior service department is reviewing how they would like to implement the out-of-county residents, and that'll be brought back forward to the board for discussion at a later date. And we are also eliminating the funding for not-for-profits as we move forward into FY20. So with that, we have a list of all full-time positions that were created as part of the FY20 adoption. The general fund has 12 positions ranging from district attorney, magistrate court, police, probate, and information services. And we have to identify those so the public and the board is fully aware of any positions that we're adding. I do want to call to your attention that the magistrate was due to an internal audit investigation that we had, and we wanted to make sure that we were properly staffed and had proper controls in place for segregation of duties. So that is a direct correspondence to that, that coordination with internal audit. All right, and the other some of the other funds that are going to be receiving some new full-time positions is 911. We're looking at a 911 operations supervisor, and the water fund, which is again a self-sustaining fund, is going to have several utility workers, maintenance tech, operator one, environmental compliance officer, and engineer. All right, and then we do have some positions that we have to reclass. We're going to be moving the grant development specialist from community development to finance, and then we're going to be reclassifying some tech ones to tech twos in water, as well as a control analyst to a process control analyst. So you can see that those are a one pay grade difference. Jumping into the general fund, this is our net increase for the year. You're looking at about a 4.73% increase over where we were last year. And how we get that is we we come up with that based on, sorry, jumping back. We want to have a breakdown here of the mandated and essential services that we talked about last year a lot during the town halls. And what we have this year, based on, even though we're looking at a 4.73% increase, is these percentages are exactly the same as they were for last year. So we're not increasing service levels in this budget, we're maintaining service levels and accounting for increased costs. Okay, and how do we get to the 4.73% increase? A lot of that is due to property taxes. Now, when we say property taxes, that does not necessarily mean millage rate. So within property taxes, one of the big changes that you'll see as we move into FY20 is the state changed the allocation for the title ad valorem tax. The county saw declines in that over the last several years with the state changing the allocation. We saw some of those dollars restored, and that accounts for a good chunk of the increase in property taxes, as well as the digest growth. We're seeing that as the other side of that property tax increase. Most of the other numbers are relatively flat with the exception of other taxes. You see about a $2 million increase, and that's due to the insurance premium taxes that we collect. And then jumping down to other fines or other financing sources, this is a change in policy of how we've put dollars to work within the finance department and through the Treasury Division. Because we have restored some of our reserves, that allows us to invest those funds and earn a greater return, which decreases the reliance on some of the other areas that we need, other revenue sources. Okay, and then as we move forward into personnel, one of the things that you'll notice here is in the general fund, we are looking at doing increased pay for certified and sworn officers, and this includes fire. This would be a 7% increase overall, but that is broken down between a pay and class adjustment of 4% and then a merit of 3% on top of that. For non-certified and sworn employees, they're going to be looking at a 4% merit increase. And then one of the things that we did change or have as a proposed change in the FY20 budget is changing the match requirement for hybrid employees. So currently the county has a match requirement where if an employee contributes 4%, the county will match 2%. We are going to be adjusting that to 100% up to 4%. So if they contribute 4%, we match 4%. They contribute 2%, we match 2%. So this was a great area of concern as we saw as the hybrid plan is where we see the most turnover rate. So we're looking to address that, and that's for all employees, public safety and non-public safety. Operating increases, you'll see a 13% increase. A lot of that is coming from a requirement for inmate medical. We currently have a contract with Wellstar, which is expiring, and we're going to be going out to RFP on that, and this is based on the estimated feedback that we've received. That's about a $5 million increase in inmate medical is what we're estimating today. So the rest of that, you're looking at about a $3 million swing there, and that is spread throughout every department within the county. And then debt service, relatively flat, transfers out, relatively flat, and contingencies. We're going to talk about those in just a second. So this is the $14 million of contingencies that we had in FY19. The items that you see there that are highlighted were either reduced or went away as we move into FY20. I'm going to start from the bottom on the Veterans Memorial. That was a one-time payment, and that will not be part of the FY20 budget because that payment would have been made. And then we had park salary contingencies where we added park staff. That is now part of their personnel budget. Accountability courts, same thing. We plussed up their staff and their operations, so that is now part of their operating and personnel budgets. Library partial restoration, again, part of their operating and personnel budgets, so those came off. Shift differential and education pay for public safety, we moved those out, one of those out into their personnel, so when we get to the 20 slide, you only see one of those. And then the top line of $8 million, that is broken down between sheriff and police. This was part of the $15 million plus up that we gave public safety in FY19, and those have now been allocated out with the exception of $2 million for police, and we'll show you that in a second. Okay, so this is the FY20 contingency slide. We talked about the 4% merit for non-certified and sworn employees and the 7% merit for certified and sworn employees. The next line down is the police operating and capital contingency. This is what's remaining of the $3 million that we had in contingency in FY19, and that will be used for one-time costs, whether it's capital replacement or accountable equipment. And then we have a lot of our standard contingencies, undesignated contingency for the BOC is $1 million, and then the shift differential is what's remaining because we moved the education pay up to PD's personnel budget. Storm debris, death penalty, change of venue, those are continuations. One of the new lines that you'll see here is employee morale, welfare, and recreation. So this is part of a new program that we're going to be running through the county manager's office. Sick leave buyback is a continuation, holiday pay, and then the 1/3 of the remaining stadium infrastructure. This is our final payment on this, and we will have fully paid the $14 million obligation that we had outstanding. This was a payment 1/3 every year for 3 years. This is the last year. And the very last item that that I have on there, well, the second to last item is succession planning and contingency. This is for training, and all these will be run through the county manager's office and be approved by him. That will share with the board. So you're fully aware of what those dollars are going to be used for. So that we will not be putting those in departmental's budgets at the initial adoption. They all have to go through the county manager's approval and be shared with the board before they're used. And then lastly is a continuation of the county manager's contingency. So this is one of the slides that I think a lot of people are very interested in, how we're doing on the Braves and how we're funding the debt service. So last year, if you look at the general fund property tax component is what we're budgeting is 22.6% of this. Last year, we were at 24.6%. So we continue to make improvements in this category. And these are coming from growth in CSSD2, which is a property tax component, as well as the hotel motel tax that we collect countywide. So growth in these areas allow us to reduce the general funds portion, and we've seen these continue to grow over the last several years. Okay, and then we have several funds on here, and Chairman, I hope I addressed your comments from yesterday. So I'm going to start with the ones that are dedicated or being used, at least in part, for the stadium debt service. So we talked about the hotel motel tax fund. That is being used to fund the stadium debt service. And then we have CSSD1, which is our $3 room night within the special district. That is partially being used to fund stadium debt service. It's also being used to fund PD in and around the development. And then CSSD2 is being used 100% for stadium debt service. And then I wanted to jump back up to some of the other items that what we talk about here is a 911 has a little asterisk by it. So any fund that has an asterisk by it, we're using fund balance appropriation to balance the fund for the year. 911 has a unique challenge where their revenue sources are primarily fixed at $1.50 per line, whereas in property taxes, we get the growth in the digest. So without significant population growth and adding of additional lines, they are pretty limited on revenue that they can generate. So with that being said, we are appropriating some fund balance to balance the fund out for the year because the reoccurring revenues are not sufficient to sustain the operations. We did that in FY19, and we will be doing it again in FY20. This is something we'll have to keep an eye on as we move forward to make sure that either the revenues improve or we'd be looking at other funding sources that would be available. All right. The debt service fund on here, we have a slight increase, but the only bonds that we have outstanding the debt service fund supports is the parks bonds. And we anticipate, based on current digest growth and projections, that we will have collected enough money to have those fully paid off by 2021, end of 2021, 2022. And then at that point, we'll have to have a discussion on the millage rate that's assigned to the debt service fund because we're legally not allowed to collect any millage that exceeds the obligation that we have outstanding. Parking deck, this is a unique fund for us. If you remember from the last several years, we've had over $300,000 subsidy going from the general fund to the parking deck. That has been significantly reduced to just over $100,000, and that is for the employee rates. When we went through this proposal, we made rate adjustments. At that time, it was determined that they'll leave the employees' rates at $30 per month, and that was the $116,000 is to cover that delta, so employee rates would not increase. All right, any questions on this slide before I move on to the next one? Okay, all right, very good. All right, and these are our business type funds. We have our golf course fund. We've did some analysis and working with the folks out there, and we had a slight reduction in their budget as we move forward. The solid waste fund is primarily due to post-closure care for all of our landfills because we privatized the operations of solid waste. They do receive a general fund subsidy for that post-closure care. Transit is transit throughout the entire county, and they do also receive a general fund subsidy as we have in years past. The water fund is self-sustaining and requires no general fund subsidy, and basically generates enough revenue to cover all operations as well as their capital needs, which we'll get into on the next slide. Okay. Stadium Capital Maintenance Fund. So this is a fund where the county contributes half of the $2.5 million and the Braves contribute half of the $2.5 million. And it goes into a trust account and it cannot be used until the Braves, the county, and the Galleria Authority sign off on it. So this is for capital maintenance related to the stadium towards the end of the life, because obviously with the new stadium, capital maintenance is relatively low and you don't need big dollars, but as the stadium ages over the 30-year period, you may have to invest dollars in capital maintenance and repair. So that's what this is going into, and it's invested and it will sit there until all three parties agree that it can be used for that purpose.
There's a cap on that, right?
There's a set schedule, sir. So we do, it's about a $20,000 to $60,000 increase over the period of time, and then it comes down again. So, but we have a schedule just like we do with the bonds where we contribute roughly $1.2 million and change to this trust each and every year to when we reach the peak, and then it'll start to dwindle. But yes, there is a set cap on that for both what the county will contribute and the Braves will contribute. Okay. And then our capital projects funds, this is where we fund a lot of our multi-year capital projects that are non-SPLOST related. So we'll see transfers from the general fund, fire fund, and other funds into this fund to account for those capital projects that are not SPLOST related. You can see it's roughly $12 million, and then we're also, again, restoring $3 million to the undesignated capital within the general fund. The last two funds are both water capital funds, and these are done based on the revenues that they generate within the water operating fund and these funds themselves. And this is done without any additional any plans for any future debt issuance regarding the water fund. The only thing that we're doing right now in the water funds is refunding a current bond, which is on the agenda for later today, but that is going to be generating savings to the water operating fund as we move forward. So with that, if you have any questions, and then,
Yeah, could you go back to the revenue slide?
yes, sir? There you go.
Right there. I think it's good to emphasize right now that I talked to Steve White last week, and he said that the floating exemption saves the taxpayer roughly this year $41 million.
Yes, sir.
So without that exemption, we would get $41 million more. And so, you know, if we had requirements, we'd have to add another 1.3 mil roughly. I think that's what $40 million is, more
Pretty
or less.
close, yes, sir.
We'd have to raise the millage rate another 1.3 million, but we don't need the money, all right, because we're bringing in sufficient revenue from various sources here. So I think that's important to emphasize that floating exemption is a big deal to the taxpayer.
Absolutely.
So anyway, any other comments from the board? Sure.
Thank you,
Commissioner Cooper.
Chairman. Yes. There was a slide that showed merit to employees out of general fund contingency.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know why I didn't spot this yesterday. When we apply that from contingency, at some point it has to move to be sustained through another source, presumably the general fund.
Yes.
So would that number be the same number for the next fiscal year?
Yes, and when we put it in contingency, because we have a balanced budget, we're saying that the reoccurring revenues support that contingency. So we're not, I think
Okay.
what you've seen in the past is when we appropriated fund balance, that's a one-time cost, whereas this is part of the balanced budget, meaning the reoccurring revenues support personnel operating transfers contingency, then we're balanced. So this year, if, let's say we approve the merit, it'll roll up into their personnel budgets, just like you saw some of these items here, roll up into personnel budgets for 20 as we move forward. So the contingency will move, the 4% and 7% will move out of contingency and roll up into their personnel budgets during the year.
For FY20?
Correct.
Okay.
So we load that there as a placeholder, and then because of vacancies, that number can swing. So rather than putting in, you know, let's say putting it in finance and we have a vacancy, well, that vacancy no longer would have a merit. So we don't allocate those dollars until until the need arises, and then we
Okay.
begin moving those out.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Sure.
And then one more question regarding capital projects.
Yes.
In the one pager that we had to show the changes in FY20 over FY19, we had added additional dollars for capital.
Yes.
Where is that going?
Okay, so it's going to be, right here in the capital line. So you have $14.9 million this year in capital. Now, when we talk about the money that we added it to undesignated capital, meaning it's not currently assigned to a department. That list will come back before the board to make those recommendations. So the only things that we have in capital right now, primarily, of the 14 million, 8.5 of that is vehicle replacement. So the vast majority of it is vehicle replacement and assigned out to departments. 5 million of that is specifically for PD. And then I think Sheriff has some additional, I think 700,000 for capital that is above and beyond the 8.5. So there's some one-off capital projects that make up the rest of that. But between the 8.5 getting to the 14, 3 million of that 14 is going to be brought back before the board to make those recommendations based on the departmental requests.
Okay, because there's another slide that shows a drop in capital from 15 to 12 million.
Yes, that is.
Is that reflective of what you're discussing? Because to me, it shows a decrease, and I don't know if it's just a movement of funds
It is.
versus an.
So,
Okay. I'll let
so
you-
no, that's a great question, because when we say capital, typically when the one pager that we talked about is general fund only. This capital is its own separate fund where we transfer money in from other funds, general fire and so on, to fund their long-term projects.
Okay.
So one of the things that you've seen in here in the past is if we've done a fire station, for example, we don't do the fire station in fire because it takes a couple years to build, acquire land and so on. So we transfer it into this fund.
I
So
see.
this fund does ebb and flow over the years based on when we're having projects come due.
Okay.
So, but this is another source of capital funding that, or a way to account for capital projects. Because like when we do something, a construction project, it doesn't take place in the general fund. We move it into this fund because it could
Okay.
exceed the fiscal year.
Okay, I appreciate you sharing that.
Sure.
My question maybe pertains to our broad interest of trying to increase capital.
Yes.
So with this movement here and then with the other fund, are we still adding additional dollars for capital
We,
when we were to look at them in totality? Because
we are.
Okay.
We are. And the reason that I can say that we are is that this one ebbs and flows based on, this is the annual contribution into this fund. So they have funds that they receive from previous years that they're spending on current projects. So even though the annual contribution for this fund has decreased a little bit, it's just based on timing of those projects.
Okay.
So the funds that we have to really address capital replacement and capital needs are going to be in that $3 million that we're going to be looking at for the board to designate out.
okay,
But this number will have peaks and valleys, but it stays pretty consistent between anywhere from, I'd say, between 10 and 16 million every year.
okay.
So
So overall, how much are we increasing for capital maintenance for FY19 to FY20? Looking at all buckets.
in all buckets. So this one, I would say I don't include this one for the reason that it does ebb and flow.
Okay.
So the way I'm viewing it in all buckets, meaning the general fund piece of that pie, is $1.5 million increase over where we were last year.
Okay.
So this is not a significant increase, but it's something that we're looking to continue to build on over time.
Okay.
So that was always a big conversation piece when we went through the recession, if that went away immediately,
Okay.
and it's going to take time to restore that.
Okay.
We did a lot last year with the millage vote by adding $8.5 million of vehicle replacement that hadn't been there since pre-recession levels. So we took a big step last year, and we're going to continue to build on that as we move forward.
Okay. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, thank you, Bill. So with that, I'll just again, 3 minutes per speaker, unlimited number of speakers. And when you come up here, if you let us know who you are and where you live, we would appreciate it. So with that, I now declare this, the first public hearing on the fiscal year 2020 proposed budget open. And with that, sir?
Donald Barth, City of Marietta, good morning again.
Good morning.
Enjoyed your little presentation on the budget. Didn't understand much of it, but I didn't go to college. You did. Now, I like the way you asked questions and checked what is and what isn't. Now, we're not running a PTA, we're not running the church, we're running Cobb County. I ask for more money wherever you got to get it for the police. In the long run, City of Marietta had police on the square in 1978. Bad guys came to the square, saw the police presence. They went to Atlanta. They wound up killing Officer Frank Slott. I'll get his name right in a minute. But the thing is, police presence does prevent crime. Other than that, you have to turn around and give the money to prosecute. I'd rather see you prevent it than to clean up the mess afterwards. So please consider as much money, anywhere you got to get it, infrastructure, police, schools, those are your priorities. Golf course, not so much. Library, we could work around a little bit.
You put him up to this.
No, sir, nobody's putting me up to anything. Anyway, I'm gonna leave it with you.
Thanks.
Please find some money and let's have the strongest police presence in this area, in Georgia.
Thank you, sir. And just to let you know, we added some positions last year in the budget, and we're increasing their compensation this year.
Compensation, not with the little hand-me-down
Okay, all right.
budget.
Sir.
Franklin Carey, Marietta.
Morning.
My concern with your budget was that when I was looking at it, and again, I'm just looking at it for the first time in here, there were some areas that you addressed that conflicted with other areas, such as cutting back in part-time employment, but you're not cutting back in your contingency funds for that. That seems to me to be a slight overview of getting extra money, but calling it for something else. I would prefer to see that whenever you are cutting, that there should be some correspondence in the contingency. The other thing that I'm concerned with is that code enforcement within the county of county of Cobb County is lacking. And I don't know why, but when you call, it doesn't seem like you get a response in adequate time. Seems that the board should consider some additional support in that area. I mean, it's important if we're trying to maintain our neighborhoods and everything that we have proper code enforcement. That's all I have to say.
Don't worry, but, hey, Bill, the first part, your first question, I was a little confused.
Okay, when you started out,
Yes.
you started talking about cuts in the part-time because you were asking for increases in other areas, so you're cutting part-time. But then when you get to the budget, you see your contingency still, the line remained the same. There was no decrease in cost whatsoever. And to me, if you're cutting
Are we
the
cutting?
base,
Yeah, are
there
we-
should be a cut in the overall.
I'm not aware of any reduction in part-time force. Matter of
I'm
fact,
just going by what was on the chart.
yeah, well, I just want to explain is that not only are we retaining them, but we're also making them part of the merit raise.
Okay.
So everybody qualifies. So but my line is that when I look at a county employee, I don't ask if he's part-time or full-time. He's a county employee.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm just going by what I saw on the
Okay.
chart.
Well, I apologize for the confusion, but I can assure you there were no reductions in force for part-time to pay for something else.
Check the charts.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Bill.
I'll get with him.
I'd appreciate that. Yeah, thanks. Please. Yes, please. Yes.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Randall Bedgood, and I live in District 1. I know budgets are a tough way to go, no matter what kind of business you're in. And when you start doing budgets, it's tough. Government budgets are complicated. Sometimes I think we make them more complicated than they need to be. What I'd like to talk to you about is on the merit raise. I know this is not a question and answer session, but on the merit raise, is that a permanent raise or is that just a one-time?
No, it's permanent.
Permanent?
Right.
Okay. I like the idea of the step thing that was brought up by Commissioner Ott. I think that's the way to go. I think the class thing y'all been doing, I think the step in class where you go from, just in the police department, you go from 32, I think, classes to 16. That's the way private industry does it. You know when you're going to top out. You get a raise every year. Sometimes they do it in a three-year thing. They say you get a 4-year rate, a 4% raise over 3 years, and so you get a raise every year, for the 3 years. I think I think Cobb County ought to go to that, because people will know exactly what they're gonna make. You can budget for it. I know you have downturns in the economy that you got to account for, and that can be adjusted. But, and also, you talk about the public safety, you talk about the police department, sworn officers. Now, is that including the sheriff's department? I hadn't heard any mention. Anytime I hear anything talked, it's about the police and the fire.
Well, it involves right now, I believe, police, fire, and sheriff. And then we're going to be bringing back next meeting, there'll be discussions later on here. There's an agenda item about certified officers in the district attorney and the solicitor's office. We're going to bring that back at the next meeting, not today, for discussion. So
Okay.
Discussion are they going to add them to the certified officers that we're already giving the one-time retention payment plus the merit raises?
Okay, and I think you should really look at just holding the merit raise to 4% for everybody, and go ahead and study the step and class thing, and go ahead and make that part of it's going to be more complicated if you do it the way you're going to do it now. It's going to make it a lot more complicated, where if you just did everybody at 4%, and then you went back and did the step and class, it would be much simpler to implement. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Randall, one question. First of all, it's great to see you again. The second thing is Steve Gaynor is working with the board about the step and grade. They want to take a look at it, make sure that when we bring it back, we have an informed discussion based on facts. So that's why we didn't see it this year. But the bigger issue is that, as we saw from the town halls and then the board meetings here, there's a significant amount of public support for doing something for our public safety this year. And so where I get your point about maybe perhaps waiting one more year, one of those things where when is the right time? And sometimes you have to just take a balanced approach about how do you do now to give encouragement to our current public safety that we have their best interests at heart. And I think that if we were to wait a year, they would take that message as something that we would receive.
I wouldn't talk about waiting a year. You got the money already allotted. Just hold the money there. Go ahead and do the study and get it all set up, and then go ahead and implement it. You can implement it the first of the year. You can implement it in February. You don't have to wait a whole year. You got the money already allotted. Just hold the money. Go ahead and do the process, and then set it up, and it'll be a lot easier.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randall.
Hi.
Good morning.
Larry Gore, Powder Springs, Georgia. I didn't see anything in the budget for our watershed down at Covenant Place. I was wondering, did David Scott's people ever get back to you about possible money for that from the state?
They've corresponded with us, but really that would have to be handled through our water department, and that is not included in our current proposed budget.
It's not in. Could we
Yeah.
consider that for next year?
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Pamela Reardon, and I live in East Cobb since 1999. Last year, we were told that in the general fund, we were going to stay at, the number anyway was 460 million. And so now all of a sudden it's 475 million. Okay, number one question. Number two, contingency. Goes from 9 million the year before last to 14 million to 18.5 million. We were told over and over, if we approved or you approved the millage rate increase, we would have plenty of money, and now we don't have plenty of money, it seems. So what happened? And if we give government more money, they always spend the money. Every time I open the paper, there's another project, and I'm thinking, okay, where did that come from? When was that approved? This is my opinion. I have a finance degree, actually, and it's really hard for me to follow this budget, just so you know. And that's why I have a lot of questions. So the operating is up 2.16%. Personnel, 20 new personnel. Does this include the police officers that last year you said we had the money, we were getting the millage increase to get? I don't think we have those police officers yet. And of course, we haven't covered that cost for those police officers. We really need them. Our response rates are down for different parts of the county, not just one part or the other part. I think pretty much all the parts. So our 20 new personnel, as far as I can see in what the numbers were, mostly included judicial officers. Now, as far as I understand, this county gets grants from the federal government to cover those costs. Where are those in the budget? Other question. So the general fund is now up to it's up, like I already mentioned, it's now up 4.75 or 3%. I should probably wear my glasses. So because our property taxes have increased because of the prices of the houses, we're up 6.37 and the other tax is 5.5. These numbers don't add up because we're bringing in more money than we are supposed to be spending, but somehow we're spending more money. And these contingency funds look like it's double accounting. And it's kind of like being used as a slush fund. I don't like to use that word, but it looks like that because, well, you're going to take it out of here, you're going to put it over there, and then you're going to bring it over there, and it's really, really hard to follow. So this whole thing about the raises, I love to have raises. Yes, I'm not opposed to having raises, but just one chunk of 7%, who decided that? I mean, nobody does that, just like that, without an explanation. And then the
Thank you.
401K, who matches 401K? All right, go Margie Green, 6th District.
Good morning, y'all. I'm Ron Siphon. I may have some other questions later.
Ron, you live in Vinings?
Vinings,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'll make sure.
I may have some other questions later, but one thing kind of jumped out at me. You've got two expenditure items for the Braves, one for the Braves stadium bonds, one for stadium capital management. I think one's a little over $5 million. It's an annual, the figure will vary from year to year, but it's an annual item. The stadium capital management, there's a schedule that says how much each year. That's an ongoing item. So it's like $7.6 million. Those are, they are what they are. But I think it would be helpful for the public to see, to take that land as it was previously basically undeveloped. What were the revenues from that property before the stadium and the battery? And what are the revenues now from all revenue sources as a result of the stadium and the battery? Not really looking for the halo effect. You can add that in. You could add that in. That would be an interesting separate number. But what I would think would be very helpful for the public to see is what's the net impact to the taxpayer. And I understand maybe the numbers will continue to improve year by year, but where are we now? So what's the net total revenue, property tax, sales tax, as far as the other taxes, other revenues that's coming from that property that's coming into the general fund? And so where are we net? It might even be helpful for y'all if you showed that number, but I think it would certainly be helpful for the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Good morning.
My name is Mary Frances Williams. I'm State Representative for House District 37, and I am in Commissioner Burrell's district. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I understand how tough the budget process is, and it's also a blueprint for our county's priorities. The numbers I was working from were 440 million. Is that the projected budget? So anyway,
Well, the general fund portion.
Okay,
A little bit
all right.
higher than that, right?
so it's just for math purposes.
Right.
So I'm here to speak to you about the budget recommendation that $850,000 for nonprofits be deleted from the budget. I've spent most of my career working for and with nonprofits, and I've been on boards of nonprofits. I looked at the 16 grantees from the current fiscal year, and I just want to talk about 3 of them since time is limited, of course. The Davis Foundation. The Davis Foundation provides support for individuals in recovery from addiction. And the #1 cause of death in Cobb County, according to the Department of Public Health's annual report, is accidental overdose. So this is an organization that is actually doing work directly that benefits our county and I think is really important work. By the way, the #2 cause of death is maternal mortality. And I also looked at Safe Path Children's Advocacy Center, and they focus on lessening trauma experienced by innocent victims of abuse, and they have teams. They pull everybody together, the DA's office, DFACS, law enforcement, healthcare providers, and more. I also looked at the Center for Family Resources, and then they're on the front lines of addressing homelessness, preventing families from becoming homeless. And when when you prevent somebody when you bring someone out of homelessness, which more than one of these organizations does, you actually bring people into economic self-sufficiency, and that turns them into taxpayers. And I know we all know what a big problem homelessness is in our county. So I'm not the greatest mathematician in the world, but according to my calculations, $850,000 is 0.0019% of the budget. It's such a tiny little bit of the budget. Human services nonprofits shoulder a tremendous responsibility for our county's well-being, and they contribute directly and indirectly to our local and state economy. They take in dollars, they spend dollars, they have staff, they contribute to our economy. Government funds provide seed money that allows nonprofits to pull down matching funds. Thank you, And ma'am. I'm sorry, time?
Sorry.
Okay. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and thank you for your hard work. I know it's a tough, tough job.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming this morning, Representative. Good morning, Alicia.
Good morning. Hi, I'm coming to you today as Alicia Adams, the homeowner in Kelly Gambrell's house, Commissioner District. I just have a couple questions for you, and largely because of my background in human resources, so you'll know where all of my questions are going this morning. Number one, I know the lion's share of the reason that we increased our millage rate last year was in order to fund and obtain more police coverage here in the county. So in the budget, I'm not seeing specificity of the net gain of officers since we started the budget last year. And I think that's an important piece for us to understand is what we had last year versus what we have this year and where the money went. So that's one question that I have.
Remember, we're funding positions. The fact that we can't fill these positions is a separate question. But there are additional positions from last year. And you're right, we added some money, well, actually a lot of resources. I'm gonna be open with you. But,
Right.
But the positions are there. We just can't find the officers to fill those positions.
Right.
now.
And so then the question becomes what's happening with those funds that are available, because we're now at the end of a fiscal year.
right.
And so what's happening with the excess of those funds?
Well, we were using that for the bonuses.
Okay.
That's how we were paying for the bonus without having to require more funding.
Okay. And maybe if we can show that graphically in the future, for future presentations. Number two, the take-home cars, we'd like to see the allocation, have those been realized, or are they still pending?
All those vehicles have been purchased.
And then the allocation of funds for non-critical positions. If our first priority is the first responders, then my encouragement is, let's not worry about the non-critical positions yet, because if they're critical, then they're critical and we need to fund them. But if they're not critical, let's focus on what is the priority issue, the most emergent issue, and I think we can pretty much all agree it is our first responders. And then I want to address the issue of the salary increases. The reason why I looked back and did a historical analysis on the average annual increase in the United States for the last 3 years. And the last 3 years, it's been anywhere from like 2.9 to 3.1%. And here we are, we're offering a 4.4% increase just across the board. And we're offering a 7% increase for those that are in sworn positions. And that is an incredible excess compared to what the national average is. And I know you may be saying, well, they didn't get an increase in a while.
Okay.
But the big question is, they still get the long-term funding of a pension. So that's a huge benefit. So thank you.
Thank you. That was a pleasure.
Good morning to all the commissioners. My name is Clara Green. I have observed all the budget, the situation you all have done, but I'm here in representing a citizen of my community as far as observing all the children that have been vacancies of just out doing nothing. But my thing is that we need to enlarge the recreation center that's in my area, which is Six Flags Off-Stair area. And I think if you would really concentrate on enlarging our recreation center, will bring a lot of the children and our neighborhood, look as far as our children needing help and having a place to go to keep them off the street and to keep us from worrying about them getting into all different types of mischief. So that's all I really had to say, just to bring attention to that neighborhood.
Thank you for your voice for your children. Thank you. Morning, Ray.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and commissioners and staff. Ray Thomas, Mableton. And I'm a part of the Mableton Improvement Coalition, but I'm here speaking on a personal note this morning. First of all, there are 2 points I'd like to...
Are you talking about the budget?
Yes.
This is about the budget, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. You said about a personal, I want to make sure we're...
No, I said I'm speaking not on behalf of the Mableton
Okay.
Improvement Coalition, but
I just want to make sure you're not
myself
part of public
personally as a citizen of
Okay.
Mableton. 2 points about the budget. Number one, I've been coming to these budget hearings now for 3 or 4 years, and I've mentioned this before, and I want to mention it again, and I'm probably reiterating what a previous speaker just said, and that is that we've got to find a way to simplify the budget. Typically a budget, you got revenue, expenses, and net, and it's very complicated to figure out what where the different sources of revenue are coming from and all the different contingencies and so forth. And I guess I'm asking the board to perhaps next year take a look at figuring out ways that we can simplify this budget so that folks can understand it regardless of their educational level.
Okay, Ray, I want you to do me a favor.
Yes.
All right. Between now and next year, I want you to sit down with Bill and tell us what you want this to look like. all
I'd
right?
love to.
I would love, seriously. all
Love
right?
to.
I get your point, and it's a good one.
Yes.
So I'm looking for a solution here. Clearly, we haven't been able to do it, so maybe sometime somebody outside the board can help us with that.
Yeah.
So
All right.
I look forward to your involvement in that.
Absolutely. Thank you. The second point I'd like to make, public safety. And there was a previous speaker that talked about what the national averages are compared to what the the amount of, the projected amount of payout or raises would be for 2020. That comparison is erroneous at best, because if we were comparing what public safety officials were making in Cobb County versus other places, and what a percent of increase it would be, then it would be there would be more value in that comparison. Let me just say this: public safety. I think we all know needs a boost, and quite frankly, the 4% to 7% is quite frankly is something I support, so particularly in my area, we definitely need more police officers. We need more presence on the street, particularly in District 4. So I support the 7% increase for the folks who are putting their lives on the line for us on a daily basis, and hopefully we'll have a few more. One last thing I want to say regarding the public safety, and that is that in the budget presentation, the presentation showed there was a line item that showed the number of positions that were going to be filled, and I think those were non-public safety positions. However, when we got to public safety, there was no line item showing how many positions needed to be filled, and so I think that's important. Yes. Thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak today.
Yeah, and Ray, just for your information, Precinct 2 will receive 9 new officers out of the next graduating class. So this is, slowly but surely, we're going to be getting better.
Okay.
And I think it's a reflection of the fact that we funded additional positions last year. And going back to your second point here, I can put 150 positions down there. It doesn't mean we're going to fill them all, because we have high standards here, and it's hard finding those officers. But we're still making 150% effort to do just that, not just in police, but also in the fire department and sheriff.
So how does the 9 compare to the other districts,
Much
or
bigger.
other precincts?
It's a much bigger contribution this year out of this class, because we know the need down there. It's clearly evident. The facts are, the needs are filled by the facts. And I'm looking forward to having even more officers down there if we find more qualified people to fill our police department positions.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You bet. Okay, seeing no other speakers, I now declare this first public hearing on the fiscal year 2020 proposed budget closed. Public comment.
You have 9 speakers who are signed up. Would you like to hear them consecutively? Some of them may have already spoken.
Sure. Is that okay with the board? Yeah. All right. Sure. 9.
The first speaker is David Birkenbein.
Morning, Mr. Chairman,
Welcome
County
back, David.
Commissioners, County Manager, David Birkenbein, Outdoor Burning Code. Mr. Chairman, you used the analogy one time when I left early that I was pushing a rock. I've already have the rock at the top of the hill. I just got to have y'all come with me to that rock. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You can't teach old dogs new tricks. I don't know what else I can do but show you the law. I can't understand what y'all are not looking at, what you're not seeing, what you're not listening to. I know you're hearing. I don't know why this is such a big problem. This is worse than the budget. You think the budget's rough? You ought to do this one. I mean, it's a simple law, and it's Article 7. It's being abused. It's not being followed. It's what I want it to be. We're getting new people in public safety, new public safety director. We're getting a new, I guess, a fire marshal. but it's the same old ingrained mentality. It's instilled. And it tells you what outdoor burning is. You know, it goes through all the definitions, same thing we've been covering for past 6 months, 7 months. But this one right here, that's the rule of law right there. If that's the rule of law, then you don't need the rest of Article 7. All you need is 54-113. That will suffice for everything. Because with that right there, 54-113, you are not going to do the prohibitions, you're not going to do the violations, you're not going to do putting out of fires, you're not going to do anything. So let's just have 54-113. You don't have to change nothing. You don't have to reword anything. Like I said, well, Mr. Birkenbein, when he says ban, that means ban. Well, what does ban mean? Doesn't ban mean ban? Doesn't prohibition mean you can't do it? The fire chief shall be authorized to ban any form of outdoor burning within 1,000 foot, within 1,000 foot radius of a person that's affected by smoke. That's all smoke. It don't pick and choose what smoke you want. Ban. And just like Commissioner Cupid asked, well, what are we banning? Well, you know, I don't know. We didn't get an answer. We never get an answer. We never get an answer. Never, ever, ever. This little placard out here I got for code enforcement out here on the front desk. It's more dangerous to have tall grass if you're my next door neighbor. And they'll come out and they'll fix it. They'll side them. I can't have a junk car. That ain't going to kill me. But yet, we're going to go out and side them and penalize them and give them penalties. We can't park on the wrong side of the street. We've got to go in the direction. But these ain't, and these are called in by people like me that would call in for smoke. But yet, you don't see that it's affected me just like tall grass, just like parking the wrong side of the street. It's not killing them, but the smoke's killing people. You have a medical burn ban that people have that's paid by a doctor, and you just totally ignore it. You have a code that says if somebody next door to me is burning and the smoke is affecting me, then you need to come out and put it out, just like a noise ordinance, just like any other ordinance that you're going to do. But yet Article 7 is just constantly abused. That's not what we want. Well, what about 1 through 6? Oh, we Johnny on the spot on them. We're going to fine you. We're going to throw you in jail. We're going to do everything else. But Code 7, outdoor burning, that's not happening. And I can't understand why. What is the problem? We've had several meetings. They were non-productive as far as I'm concerned. You know it. I know it. And I don't know what we're going to do. But I'm going to keep battling this until the end of time, I guess. Like I say, I'll probably have more commissioners. I'll probably have more chairmans. I'll probably have more fire chiefs because we got another fire marshal. But, you know, and I don't know what their intentions are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
The next speaker is Teresa Granat.
Morning, Commissioners. Missed you last time, Mr. Boyce, so we thought we'd come again and bring some yellow in the house. My name's Teresa Gurnett. I live at 320 Indian Trail with my mom. It's a Sewell Manor neighborhood I grew up in. I'm proud to call Marietta my home, and I pray for you all on a whole different level and by name on a weekly basis after this endeavor. I can promise you that every Tuesday I'm writing down your names and I'm committing to pray for each of you by name because I'm absolutely astounded at the overwhelming task that you have on a daily basis to serve the citizens of Cobb County. And I know that you don't take it lightly, and I just want to acknowledge that on a personal level to start with. We're just here to remind you this morning that we have appreciated your stance on our behalf, and we're just going to put something up there about the intergovernmental coordination from the Cobb County 2040 vision. This is from your policymakers here, coordinating and planning policymaking between the county, cities, regional, state, federal agencies, and other special authority governments to ensure consistency in developments and provision of services. This is regarding the property across from QT at Lower Roswell and the Loop Road. And for those of that are here that aren't aware of that, we're battling to do right here, to just create an attractive, well-designed neighborhood and to keep ours that has been there for nearly 6 decades. We have one member in our community, Mr. Mentor, who has lived in the neighborhood 67 years. And I represent 14 families who have been there for 4 decades or more. And we just want to thank you to continue to fight for us and to just hear our voice. Again, I pray for you on a different level. It's a strange and strangely familiar situation. So the next slide I'm going to show you is also from the same plan, the goals that you all set up for us and the future land use goals. Number 1, to coordinate and advance land use policies that manage growth by promoting compatible distribution of land uses while preserving established suburban and rural communities and respecting individual properties. I've been to 2 of your town hall meetings since this time. I hope to get to as many as I can. And again, thank you from the bottom of my heart for fighting for the citizens of Cobb County and for, just scoot it up just a little bit more, Robin, so you can see, to facilitate projected growth while preserving and protecting existing stable neighborhoods and community character. One of the reasons why I have never written you an email is because I really don't want to. You haven't received one personal email from me for anything. I need to send you just an email of thanks for what's happening here. And just, we have a stable existing community. And that's all we want to do is keep it and fight for it. And so the last thing I want to do on a personal level is just read this prayer for you all. It's from 1 Kings 8. And this is not representing my neighborhood. This is representing me personally. And it's the context of Solomon's benediction. And I want to pray it over you all and all of our commissioners and all of our participants here. Blessed be the Lord our God, who has given rest to his people, Israel. According to all that he promised, not one word has failed of all his good promises, which he promised through Moses, his servant. Now I'm praying this for you weekly. May the Lord our God be with the Cobb County Commissioners, as he was with our fathers, and may he not leave them or forsake them. May he incline their hearts to himself to walk in his ways, to keep his commandments and his statutes and his ordinances, which he commanded our fathers. And may these words of mine, which I have made in supplication before the Lord, be near to the Lord our God day and night, that he may maintain the cause of his servants, the Board of Commissioners, as each day requires, and all of their co-workers, so that all the peoples of the earth may know that the Lord is God. Over Cobb County, there's no one else. Therefore, let your hearts be wholly devoted to the Lord our God, to walk in his statutes and to keep his commandments as at this day. Thank you for your service. Ms. Cupid, Ms. Gambrell, Mr. Boyce, Ms. Burrell, Mr. Ott, and abstentia. Thank you, each of you, and all that are here today.
Thank you. Thank you for that very special moment today. Thank you.
The next speaker is Donald Barth.
Good morning again.
Morning.
I'm here to speak about the Lower Roswell Road fiasco. And I really appreciate the fact that y'all have become supportive, unified. Guess what? We got tumbling backed up over here. Stay that way. All I need y'all to do is keep your pressure on. There are 100 ways we could settle this. Everybody wants to do it with the lawyer. God knows I hate the lawyers. No offense, ma'am. But how do we get out of this situation? How do I not go back to Kennestone? Are you under stress? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I am. What is it? Well, I'm pretty sure it's Lower Roswell Road at this moment. Stop this from happening ever again. Somebody with the name Esquire keeps asking for special favors. What is an Esquire anyway? Pain? We don't need that kind of stuff in Cobb County. Special favors are when something is necessary, not for profit. Now again, as long as y'all stay unified, the city of Marietta says they're not going to move. And you're not moving, they're not moving, so do I get King Solomon down here? chop that thing in half. You keep your half, they don't annex it. Marietta already has the front half. What's happened? Trayton can't build there. So there's no problem. Does the land need to be developed? Yes. Does it need to be developed appropriately? That's all anybody's ever asked. So I don't have the right words, but I hope y'all stay on the ball, put the pressure, find an attorney that can do the job if that's what it takes. Let's get this fixed. Thank you.
Sir, you're very eloquent, no matter what you think of yourself.
The next speaker is Hill Wright.
And I have to follow this guy, so. Okay, I'm Hill Wright from District 2. Commissioner Ott is my district commissioner. I want to thank him for his leadership and physical responsibility with the county's budget. Also want to thank the VOC for your objection to the annexation of the Z201904. That's the Lower Roswell Road and the South Loop that the speaker before me so eloquently spoke about. I request that the Board of Commissioners pass a resolution to let the city of Marietta know that representatives of 34 Cobb neighborhoods have strongly opposed the annexation request, and they request Trayton Homes simply meet the existing requirements to move forward with this project. I do not think the city of Marietta should try to force Cobb County to accommodate the developer. I want to thank each and every one of you to your service to our community, and it's appreciated very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
The next speaker is Ann Gore.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Ann Gore. I live at Covenant Place, Powder Springs, and I would like to yield the remainder of my time to my husband, Larry Gore.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure. You're welcome.
Thank you for your service.
You're welcome again. Thank you.
I'd like to give each of the commissioners a copy of that, personally. If you can, display this on the camera. Okay, do I need to do that here? Okay. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Just read it off up here. Okay, thank you. I'm here complaining again. Thank you guys for listening to me.
No problem.
Larry Gore, Covenant Place, Powder Springs, Georgia. I'm just going to read the first two paragraphs and I'm going to wing it and refer to your own code. In addition to my annotated grievance, please accept my oral remarks as part of these grievances ongoing since 10/10/2017. I reserve the right to revise and amend same. I believe this is the 8th installment if you have not deleted one. Please present all Covenant Place common community property, revoke all subdivisions, related bonds, and complete our development consistent with the annotated description of Covenant Place as defined by Cobb County Code 134-1982, grandfathered 2004 Z104, and related planning documents. Made several requests for inspection of our stream bank buffer. We have a lake, we're a lake community. I've had code enforcement and I've had erosion control people. I actually coordinated a meeting with state EPD, Jason Rogers, Frank Gibson, and one of his inspectors, Jay Jones, came out. And this was the first inspection, if you guys can get a picture of that. That was a situation where someone had stripped the stream bank buffer and built a dock in the buffer. None of that is permitted according to Cobb County Code and I think in state regulations too. But as a result of that, Jason Rogers told all of us that, and he handed out a piece of paper that said, these are state regulations. This is what the state requires when the state owns the land and the state owns the water. But he also said Cobb County may have further restrictive governance over this situation. And if they do, that is controlling and that is enforceable. And sure enough, Cobb County does. And I've listed those in your white paper. I've given each one of you this. I just want to make a notation of a few of these. They're not in the order that they're presented on the white paper. 5046 requires no person shall engage in any land disturbing activity or otherwise alter the hydrology or vegetative characteristic of any parcel within the protected area without first having obtained a land disturbance permit from the Community Development Department as provided in this division. Then 5216 says that land disturbing activity means any land change which may result in soil erosion from water or wind and the movement of sediments into the water or into land within the county, including but not limited to clearing, grubbing, stripping, goes on and on. 3, but the main thing it says any land disturbance activity means any land change. Number 3, same code 5216. Tree means any living, self-supporting, woody, perennial plant which normally obtains a trunk diameter of 2 inches or at least 2 inches and which normally obtains a height of 10 feet and has a trunk, and it goes on. When Cobb County code enforcement or erosion control people come out to investigate one of my complaints on the stream bank buffer, they tell the people that live there that they can cut down a 3-inch diameter tree and anything under that, and they can strip that vegetation out and remove it from the buffer, and they consider that normal landscape activity. Well, nothing in your code allows for that. And when I met with Frank on 2 different occasions, I carried him the zoning. He said they're inspecting to the state requirements. But you have code that says if you're quiet on the subject matter, then the state rules would apply. But you're not quiet on it. You have much to say about it. So I'll continue on. 5222, trees shall not be removed in
Thank
any
you, sir. That's
protected
your time.
zone.
Is he the next 5 minutes on the sign-up sheet?
He is. There are no provisions in the code to allow somebody to,
There's none against it.
Well, I'm
There's
just
no-
saying that she yielded his time, she yielded
there
her
are no,
time to him.
okay, I'm just telling you your rules. Your rules do not provide for that. They provide 5 minutes for each speaker, so y'all may make your call.
Okay.
Well, your rules doesn't forbid
Let
it.
me just ask for the board here.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and do the Solomon thing here. I'll give you 2.5 more minutes, okay?
Okay, that's good enough. I'm going to present all this to you anyway. Trees shall not be removed in any protected zone unless the owner developer documents an economic hardship if the trees in the protected zone were to be preserved. Such documentation shall be submitted as part of the application for land disturbance permit. That's in our final plan. They don't have any right to do any of that. Nothing in this article shall be construed to allow the removal of vegetation in a designated undisturbed buffer required by the condition of zoning. Ours is clear on that. And then 5216, land disturbing activity means the scraping, plowing, cleaning, the dredging, goes on and on. Placement of any structure or impervious surface, dam, obstruction, or deposit, and shall not include ordinary landscaping maintenance. Now, they take that out of context. What is ordinary landscaping maintenance? That's covered in 5216. Such activities may include stream crossings for trains, transportation routes, utility construction, sewer, water line construction, and minor landscaping of channel improvement activity to stabilize a critical area. It doesn't say you can go in and strip the vegetation out to create a critical area and then landscape it. It's not intended that way. And then 134-1, maintaining natural buffer means a designated area that may be enhanced with plantings, ecologically compatible in the area, which may not be clear-cut, mowed, or otherwise disturbed. Only dead, dying, diseased, or invasive vines or plants may be removed from the buffer. No storage of structures or other non-growing items may be placed in the buffer. You've got other things that says you can't make a beach. Well, we live in Powder Springs. We are a beach. Now, if you put pine straw over the top of that, you've still got a beach. You just covered it up with pine straw. I've got pictures I'm going to present with you guys, and I'm not going to leave you all my codes. It took me a long time to get this up, but you all have it. You have experts. I would be more than happy to meet with anyone in stormwater. And Lisa, you
I
and
know
anybody?
you've been quite diligent.
Good.
And our staff has been looking at this issue for a significant period
Yes,
of
ma'am,
time and
it's a
continue
problem.
to do so. And thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, sir, and ma'am.
The next speaker is going to be Ron Siphon.
Okay, hold on 1 second, Ron, let me get papers out of here.
All the pictures are identified, information in the back of them. Sorry, man. I'm sorry.
No, don't work, no, take your time, there's no rush.
They're all cataloged, numbered, and lettered. Thank you.
Perfect. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Ron Siphon, and y'all are working on making a submission of projects to the ATL for approval. And so there's an article about it in Sunday's paper. I've heard discussion about there should be other projects that get submitted. There's a recent transit study that recommended bus rapid transit operating in managed lanes on I-285. It's a preliminary study. The study's still going on. There's more work to do. I think with tweaks, that could be a great project. But the managed lanes on I-285 aren't going to be completed until 2028. There's no urgency to preemptively submit a project like that now. when there's more work to do on it, that project may evolve before it's ready. We have a comprehensive transportation plan process going on right now that's going to do a lot more work in defining our needs. But the transfer center, the transfer facilities, and the other project that was discussed in Sunday's paper, those are projects that have been worked on for a long time. They're clearly defined and they are urgent needs now. So I actually agree that that's the projects list that we should submit now. There are going to be future opportunities to submit additional projects, but these are the ones that we need to move forward with right now. So I actually think that's a good list. So now I want to change the topic and talk about the I-75, 575 managed lanes. I think everybody recognizes that they've had a dramatic impact on improving traffic congestion. So just to go through a little bit of detail, the graph that's up there right now, and I can send you all this information if you want, this shows the improvement in traffic from 2018, January and February, before the managed lanes opened, comparing to January and February 2019 after the managed lanes opened. For the whole 24-hour period on southbound I-75. And just to mention a few items, in 2018, the average speed was under 50 miles an hour for 6 hours. In 2019, the average speed is under 50 miles an hour for an hour and a half. I mean, it's really dramatic. Do the northbound. On northbound, in some ways it's more dramatic, in some ways it's less dramatic, but using the same number, in 2018, the average speed was under 50 miles an hour for nearly 4 hours. In 2019, the average speed, the lowest, at the peak of rush hour, the average speed only gets down to 53 miles an hour. It's dramatic how much this project has improved traffic congestion, reduced traffic congestion, improved mobility for a huge number of people in Cobb County. And the importance of this is that this is almost a demonstration project. GDOT is planning more managed lanes for the region, including 3 managed lanes projects for the entire top half of I-285, the western part of the top end project, as well as most of the what's called the West Wall project, the west side I-285 project. Those are in Cobb County, and they will certainly dramatically improve mobility for a lot of people in Cobb County. And the managed lanes are designed also to accommodate transit. So the bus rapid transit proposal operating in the managed lanes, that's a double benefit from the managed lanes. It will not only improve mobility for people who are driving, it will enable us to have transit components and new transit projects.
Thank you, sir.
That will significantly improve mobility for transit riders. So thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
The next speaker is Clara Green.
Okay, thank you all again for this opportunity to be before you all, this citizen board. But anyway, I didn't realize I was supposed to wait, but my concern, the reason why I am here is because of my neighborhood. I'm a citizen of that neighborhood, of Allstate, Six Flags area. I volunteer a lot in that area, and I observe the kids and what they do in the recreation center. and noticing that the overcrowdedness of that area is getting to the extreme that there's not enough room for the kids to do the things that they need to do, the programs that need to be involved. So I'm just an advocate as far as saying that the recreation center need to be enlarged. And that's the only thing I'm standing before you to bring that attention to that area. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Green. It's always a pleasure to have you. Come back anytime.
The next speaker is Randall Bedgood.
Randall Bedgood, District 1. Pleased to address y'all again. I still got some more things to go over about the budget and some other things. I'd like to talk about what the lady, one of the speakers before said about the 7% raise. She's talking about the national average. I worked for a company for 45 years, and I guarantee you I never got a 7% raise in 1 year. A lot of years I didn't get about a 0.5% raise. Anyway, about the budget, the things I didn't get to go over with is you're proposing to pay the $20 a month for the annuity for the sworn officers. That pays them approximately, and somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure, but right now I think that pays them about $760 a month in an annuity when they retire. I think with the raise they're getting, I think they can afford the $20 themselves. It's a voluntary program that is set up for them. And the other county employees don't get to participate in that. And I just think that that's kind of an unfair advantage. If there was an annuity program that the other county employees could contribute to for $20 a month and get $760 a month at retirement in addition to their county retirement, I think they would do it. Vast majority of them would. Then you've also got the problem is when that annuity, when that payment increases, if it increases, are you going to pick up the difference? Is it going to keep going up? And the other thing is benefits for the county employees. You need to upgrade your maternity leave. Your maternity leave is, when you look at other businesses, other companies, private, other governments, everything, your maternity leave is about nil. And you need to, if you're going to pay the $20 for the annuity for the sworn officers, why don't you kick in something for the parking, for the employees that have to pay parking in this parking deck that work in this building? That would be a benefit to them. Then there was some discussion I had brought up in other meetings about using excess SPOS funds to pay off the in bonded indebtedness, mainly the parking garage. And I knew at the time I discussed it that there was a call date for those bonds. I didn't say anything about it because I didn't know how serious y'all would take my comments about that. But somebody took it serious enough to look into when those bonds were called. And in a previous meeting, I think Mr. Ott made the statement that those bonds couldn't be paid off until they were called. And I think they were called in 2021 or 2022. I can't remember exactly what year. But the reason why I brought that up about paying those bonds off is because you can start now. Your special purpose sales tax is bringing in a lot more revenue. Last reporting period, you said $125 million more. And so you can start planning now and have that money to pay off that $8 million and be through with that interest that you're having to pay every year. And also there was a discussion the other day about paying off the parks bond. I believe that's 0.13 mil. And it's a discussion about what we're going to do with that money. You know, we can't, you know, are we going to lower the millage rate, or are we going to do this or do that? What you need to look at right now is your pension fund. if you need to go to the state legislator, the state representatives, and get them to approve it, you need to switch that to a designated fund for your pension fund. And it probably even should be up. You should take some money from your fire fund and up that to 0.5% or 0.5 to your retirement fund. And that would go a long ways in solving a lot of problems. And but there's a lot of other things you could do. And I try to bring, when I bring problems, I try to bring solutions to them too. You don't see me very much come up here and just throw out a bunch of problems and let y'all try to figure out how to solve them. Whether you're gonna take my solutions seriously or not is another matter. But you need to look at those things that you can actually, where you can save money on interest.
Thank you,
And
sir.
I appreciate your time.
Hey, Randall, a couple things. We're going to be bringing back to the board in September the paternity issue for paternity leave for county employees. I'm probably going to call it something else, but we hear you on that one. I've heard it before. The parks bond will be paid off sooner than the garage bond. So that's probably, is Bill Volkman still here? When is?
They said 2021 or 2022.
2021 on the parks bond, but the garage is their way in the future. And we have a shortfall. Well, so that's why we went to what we did. And you're in fact correct, we can use SPOS dollars to pay off other bonds, but we first have to fund all the Tier 1 projects. And we haven't done that yet. So maybe next year, we might have a better grasp as whether or not what we can do with that, once we see how much the Tier 1 projects cost. Because the prices of these programs is going up for reasons that we're influenced by the national policies more than what we're doing here. We got to pay more for stuff now for reasons you probably know. So your ideas have merit, and I can assure you that we're going to probably doing some of those along some of those lines here next year, as we have a better idea of what the true costs are and what we have in our SPOS dollars.
Yeah, those SPOS dollars, like I said, with the stadium, you keep about the stadium, how much money it's bringing in. And like I said, you had $125 million excess last reporting period. And I know you want to hang on to that money. And I don't talk about paying off the bonds. You know, you can't pay them off before they're called.
Right.
But you can have that money in the special purpose sales tax fund. At the end of, you can look at that and plan that out and say, because there's a lot of projects that get put in that fund that wasn't in it to start with. And so you could come up with $8 million.
Okay. Thanks, Randall.
That completes your speakers.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go on to consent agenda, and just a couple notices here. We have agenda number items number 5 and 34 withdrawn to a later date. And then consent item number 17 and 18 have been revised. We've added some, we've reworded those agenda items. So if you would scroll down for the public to see what those consent items are. Just to let everybody know, 17 and 18 were rewritten to add the proviso that if the grant goes away, then the position that the county funds for that program will also go away. Okay, with that, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as revised. You have a second? Any discussion? Call the question. Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Ott absent. All right, let's go on to the regular agenda. And first is Sheriff.
Good
Morning.
morning, Chairman, Commissioners, County Manager. We're here seeking a recruiting supplement, $5,000 recruiting supplement for lateral entry certified peace officers who are onboarding with the Sheriff's Office. It's our recommendation that the board authorize the recruiting supplement in the amount of $5,000 for lateral entry certified police officers with the Sheriff's Office. This would not exceed a $50,000 annual cost, and to authorize the chairman to execute necessary documents.
So with that, I make a motion to approve the consent of the agenda item as written.
Second.
In discussion now?
Yes, just for clarification, this is coming out of the sheriff's budget.
Yes, it
Not
is.
the county general fund.
Yes.
Okay.
And the two installments equal the 5,000 total.
Yes, ma'am. We'll have a first phase that they will receive the 2,500, and then a second phase where they receive the remaining 2,500.
Do you have a second? Any further discussion? Call the question. Passes 4-0. Thank you. And now, public safety. Did you finally meet your match somewhere out there, Chief? I want to meet these 5 guys.
No comment. Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman, Board of Commissioners, and Mr. County Manager. We have a similar item on the agenda to approve recruiting supplement for lateral entry officers for the police department. Specifically, up to 20 officers for $5,000 as a lateral entry signing incentive. The officers will have to make a commitment of 3 years to work for the Cobb County Police Department. If within that 3 years they voluntarily separate from the department, there'll be a prorated payback that they would have to do and make. Also, a little different, we'll do one sum. Our training curriculum is different from the Sheriff's Department. If a person meets the lateral entry criteria, we would bring them in. They would have to go through the initial training, which is about 6 weeks, and then finish the 12-week field training officer program phase 2. And that will be about the 5-month mark, give or take. And we would then request that they be paid the incentive.
Okay. All right, so I make a motion to approve the recruit lateral entry for the police department as written.
Second.
Discussion. Call the question. Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Ott in absence. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Commissioners.
On to transportation.
Good morning.
Morning, Erica.
We have 9 items for consideration this morning. The first item is to request that the Board of Commissioners determine that circumstances are such that it is necessary to proceed with condemnation proceedings by declaration of taking under OCGA 32-3-4, authorize the commencement of condemnation proceedings on 2 parcels on McCullen Parkway at Ben King Road, adopt the resolutions and orders in form substantially similar to the attached and as approved by the County Attorney's Office, and further authorize the chairman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Burrow.
Motion to approve.
I'll second. Discussion. Call the question. Passes 4-0. Commissioner Ott in absence.
Thank you, sir. Our second item is to request that the Board of Commissioners determine that circumstances are such that it is necessary to proceed with condemnation proceedings by declaration of taking under OCGA 32-3-4, authorize the commencement of condemnation proceedings on 1 parcel on New Macklin Road, adopt a resolution and order in form substantially similar to the attached, and is approved by the County Attorney's Office, and further authorize the chairman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Cupid.
So moved.
In discussion. Call the question. Passes 4-0. Commissioner Ott in absence.
Thank you, sir. Our next item is to request that the Board of Commissioners ratify previous action by the county manager authorizing emergency repairs on Riverview Road in a response to a sinkhole and approve project number X2259 to the 2018 countywide unit price contract with Butch Thompson Enterprises in an amount not to exceed $81,533.25 for said repairs, authorize the corresponding budget transactions, and further authorize the chairman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Cupid.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the question. Passes 4-0. Commissioner Ott in absence.
Okay, thank you, sir. Our next item is to request that the Board of Commissioners approve a contract with Triscapes, Inc. in an amount not to exceed $308,901.71 for Bells Ferry Road sidewalks, authorize the corresponding budget transactions, and further authorize the chairman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Morrow.
Thank you. The community and I are very excited to see this moving forward as it connects to the Noonday Creek Trailhead. Motion to approve.
I'll second it. Discussion? Call the question. Passes 4-0. Commissioner Ott in absence.
Okay, thank you. Our next item is to request that the Board of Commissioners approve change order number 1 to the contract with Glosson Enterprises, a no-cost time extension through March 31st, 2020 for intersection improvements on Post Oak Trick Road at Hembry Road, and authorize the chairman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Burrow.
Before I make a motion, Erica, this was due to the utility
Yes, ma'am.
issues.
We've had
the
utility
extension
delays
request.
and rain, yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I'm ready to see this
I know.
finished, and so is
We are, yes, ma'am.
the public.
Yes,
So I do understand the need for the extension, but, and I appreciate the community's patience with this. Motion to approve.
I'll second it. Discussion? Call the question. Passes 4-0. Commissioner Ott in absence.
Okay, thank you. Our next item is to request that the Board of Commissioners approve change order number 1 to the contract with Lawson Enterprises in an amount not to exceed $51,200 for safety and operational improvements on Old 41 Highway, Main Street. Approve for contract time extension through October 31st, 2019, and authorize the corresponding budget transactions, and further authorize the chairman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Gamble.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Call the question. Passes 4-0. Commissioner Ott in absence.
Okay, thank you. Our next item is to request that the Board of Commissioners approve change order number 2 final to the contract with CMES and a savings to the project in the amount of $593,099.27 for thoroughfare improvements on Interstate North Parkway and Interstate North Circle. Authorize the corresponding budget and transactions, and further authorize the chairman to execute the necessary documents.
Motion to approve. Discussion? Call the question. Passes 4-0. Commissioner Ott in absence.
Okay, thank you. The next item is to request that the Board of Commissioners approve change order number 2 final to the contract with Glosson Enterprises, a savings to the project in the amount of $145,460.80 for improvements on Bells Ferry Road at Barrett Parkway, Piedmont Road. Authorize the corresponding budget transactions, and further authorize the chairman to execute the necessary documents.
Commissioner Burrow.
Motion to approve, and nice to see a savings here.
I'll second. Any discussion? Call the question. Passes 4-0. Commissioner Ott in absence.
Okay, thank you. And then our last item is to request that the Board of Commissioners authorize procurement of professional services from Muratech USA in an amount not to exceed $31,725 for pipe repairs on Ernest Barrett Parkway, and further authorize the corresponding budget transactions.
Commissioner Gamble.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Call the question. Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Ott in absence.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erica.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, County Manager. Finance has one item on the regular agenda today, is to adopt a bond resolution authorizing the issuance and competitive sale of the Cobb County Water and Sewage Revenue Refunding Revenue Bonds, Series 2019, in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $78,550,000 in order to refund all or a portion of the county's water and sewage improvement revenue bonds, Series 2009, which are currently outstanding in an aggregate principal amount of $77,475,000. In other words, we're basically refinancing existing debt. On May 28th, 2019, the Board of Commissioners approved the Finance Department to proceed with the steps necessary to refund our bonds. In accordance with our policy, we seek to refinance any bonds where we can experience 3% net present value savings in our bonds. Right now, we stand to save approximately 14% in NPV on those bonds, which equates to approximately $10 million. So with that, I would like to ask that the Board of Commissioners adopt a bond resolution pertaining to the revenue refunding bonds, which bond resolution provides without limitation as follows. A, authorize the issuance of a not to exceed $78,550,000 in original aggregate principal amount of Cobb County, Georgia Water and Sewage Refunding Revenue Bond Series 2019 in order to refund, optionally redeem into fees of all or any portion of the county's water and sewage improvement revenue bond Series 2009 outstanding in an aggregate principal amount of $77,475,000. B, approves the appointment of U.S. Bank National Association as the paying agent of the bond registrar for the refunding bonds. C, approves the pre-pricing terms of the refunding bonds and the parameters for the pricing thereof set forth in the bond resolution. D, approves the official notice of sale and exhibits and approves the continuing disclosure certificate in substantially the form included as an appendix to the preliminary official statement. E, authorizes the proceeding with the validation of the refunding bonds. F, delegates the chairman, vice chairman, the county manager, and the finance director comptroller of the county, each respectively acting on behalf of the county, to authorize the authority to accept the lowest conforming bid for the purchase of the refunding bonds form and award the sale of the refunding bonds to the lowest responsive bidder proposing the lowest true interest cost to the county, and thereby approve the interest rates and maturity dates of the refunding bonds, subject to the pre-pricing terms and parameters approved in the bond resolution. G, authorizes the preparation, execution, and delivery of the final official statement, a bond terms certificate, a Rule 10B-5 and Rule 12C2-12 certificates, refunding instructions, a paying agent and bond registrar agreement, a tax certificate and compliance agreement, and all other documents necessary or appropriate in connection with the issuance and competitive sale of the refunding bonds. H, authorizes the chairman, the county manager, the finance director, comptroller, and the water system director of the county to take all other necessary and appropriate actions and to execute all necessary and appropriate documents to accomplish the foregoing, and I, approves all other matters set forth in the bond resolution and all other actions and matters required or appropriate in connection with the issuance and competitive sale of the refunding bonds.
Is there anything else you want to add to that?
Z, no. No, sir.
Okay. Commissioner Burrows.
Motion to approve
I'll second.
and discussion.
Sure.
The savings, the $10 million savings
Yes,
goes
ma'am.
back to the water fund.
Yes, ma'am.
Does it have to be designated for sewer, or can it be stormwater management and
It's an
infrastructure?
unobligated expense of the water system fund. So at
Okay.
this point in time, it could be up to Steve's discretion.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion? Call the question. Passes 4-0, Commissioner Ott in absence.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have no further public comment, and we have no appointments, so Commissioner comments. Commissioner Burl, I'll start with you today.
Oh, boy. Okay, I'd first like to recognize Drew Ressler. He's in the audience today. Welcome back, Drew. Drew was my District 3 engineer for District 3 out of DOT. He left us and went to Athens, as he would say, God's country. And he's now come back as Erica's deputy director of DOT. So when he left, he had one beautiful little girl. Now he has 3 kids. So welcome back to you and your family. We're happy to have you. Do you want to stand up so we can? Thank you. Thank you. I'd also like to say congratulations to Mr. Jordan. He's a 9-year veteran of the U.S. Army. Thank you for your service. Mr. Jordan adopted this handsome lab right before the Independence Day holiday, and he is excited to have a new forever home. He is our 95th veteran adoption from the Cobb County Animal Shelter. And I'd like to thank the Animal Services and Superior Plumbing for their donation to make this possible. Okay. let's see, census jobs information sessions. There will be 2 information sessions for those interested in working for the 2020 census. The Mountain View Regional Library sessions will be held Wednesday, July 10th from 4 to 7 and Monday, July 22nd from 11 to 4. The library is located at 3320 Sandy Plains Road, and you can visit 2020census.gov/jobs for more information. Also, Vision to Learn provides free eye exams, screenings, and glasses to children aged 5 to 18. Pre-registration is now open for the next Vision to Learn clinic, which will be held Wednesday, July 17th from 9:30 to 3 at the Sibley Library. You must pre-register at cobbcat.org. And then Keep Cobb Beautiful will be hosting the next Household Hazardous Waste event Saturday, July 27th from 9 to noon at Jim Miller Park. You can learn more about the event and what is acceptable or not acceptable by visiting keepcobbbeautiful.com. And then last but not least, the new park in District 3 on Ebenezer Road, 4055 Ebenezer Road. We will be holding our final public input meeting for the master plan on August the 7th from 6:30 to 8 at the Noonday Baptist Church, 4121 Canton Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gamble.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to remind everyone today at Lost Mountain Park, we have our farmers market from 4 to 7 p.m. Everyone can come out and support our small local growers. And then also today, from 2 to 4, we're going to be celebrating the Kennesaw Library. As many might remember, the last day for the Kennesaw and Ackworth Library will be July 13th. And then on Thursday, we will have our farewell to Ackworth Library from 1 to 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Cupid.
For District 4 events, I encourage you to refer to my newsletter at cobbcounty.org/Cupid. I thought I'd take some liberty to address some of the comments shared with respect to the budget because this process is rolling fairly quickly, and I thought I'd just make a few responses and hopefully have the opportunity to address these more individually with people if they were to share their concerns with me privately. With respect to the pay increase of being 4% and 7%, I think that that measure is being taken because we have gone multiple years without any pay increase. And I appreciate the diligence in looking at what the practice is nationally, annually, because, you know, even for my working in the public sector, I would have never thought I'd go a year without getting a pay increase that was reflective of the amount of contribution that I made to the organization. And we continue to have employees making great contributions to our organization, which is resulting in our growth, but we have gone several years without recognizing them through that with the merit. I think the disparity in public safety becomes greater because of the level of risk that they bring to their positions. And so we did apply bonuses earlier this year, and there's a desire to do more in recognition of the level of risk that they've been taking as they, similar to other employees, have not been getting a return for the level of contribution to the county. So I think when we do what we're supposed to do in budgeting responsibly year after year, we don't have to take such significant actions which would raise eyebrows that is being done here today. There was a comment made about us needing to prioritize public safety and for us to look at preventative measures so that they don't impact our solicitor's office. And then there were comments made that we should not invest in golf courses and maybe we should do a little bit less for our libraries. And I really wish the gentleman was here so I could talk with him more. But I really appreciated him looking at preventative measures for public safety. And sometimes I think we do look at things not being as much a priority, but he's right. The more we do to prevent crime from occurring, the less of a cost it has to our system in the back end. So while playing golf may not necessarily be looked at as a preventative measure, if we can get a child in a library who's well-educated, who's focused on their education, that keeps that child from doing things that could be causing crime in our communities. And also, our libraries are not for our children. I'm amazed when I go to our libraries how much work is being done on workforce development. I mean, these libraries are not your grandmother's, librarians are not your grandmother's librarians. They are helping everyone on a variety of issues. We have STEM programming, and we also have people looking for work, and I've seen them. I mean, it just truly touches my heart when I see our staff at the libraries helping people fill out resumes and apply for work and look for resources so that they can become gainfully employed. These things affect our bottom line as a county because they keep people doing positive things that contribute to Cobb County. So we're not putting money into having to fight crime, whether it's from a policing perspective or from a DA's perspective or a solicitor's perspective. We are having more people, again, contribute to the positive fabric of Cobb County. So again, when we talk about what is public safety for Cobb County, it is not necessarily directly tied to those direct services of police. And it's not even just directly tied to those that serve public safety. I mean, we look at information systems, our 911 operators who are out there. We look at DOT and keeping our roads safe. There are a lot of people that address the safety of this county that are not necessarily police officers, that are not necessarily in our jails, but there are also people who also work in public services every day that are addressing the needs of our communities on a broad basis to to create a community. I don't think that, they're there to provide a service level for all people, but they also play a role in preventing people from looking at other activities which are not positive to our county. So again, I would love to have a conversation with anyone who does not necessarily see all of these things working together to create a safe community. There was a conversation about us limiting our list about what projects that we're sending to the ATL and saying that our project list that we're providing is adequate. I would like to have another conversation because I have not had an email a month ago, a year ago, telling me how important these projects were and that they need to happen now. But all of a sudden, they're on this list and they need to happen now. But what I have heard are other projects that are related to transit that our community has been asking for that are not included on this list. And I think that submitting a list to the ATL is not guaranteeing that these projects are moving forward. All we're doing is saying, look at what we have, see what you can provide funding for, so that we know we could potentially take that cost burden off our citizens and look at another funding source. So why we are limiting opportunity, I don't understand, why we will limit someone from taking a look and seeing what could potentially be a source of funding when we spend so many meetings talking about where we're going to find funding. This provides us an opportunity to, again, take this burden off of our taxpayers, look at another resource, and address other ongoing projects that residents have told us are of importance to them. So I would love to have more conversation about these matters because they are important matters that address the quality of our community and the bottom line here in Cobb County and are worthy of discussion. And finally, for those who've had questions about our budget process and us simplifying it, I hear you. I've been on this board for 7 years and I'm always learning something new about our budgeting process. And I think there's more that we can do. And some efforts have been taken for those that have ability to participate in Cobb 101, which has been a great program for us, but that is for a limited subset of people who apply and are accepted. So what I'd like to do, I don't know if there's time to do it between now and our next hearing, but if we can just carve out a portion to do a budget 101 for those that would like to at least have some knowledge about it, I would just talk to finance. Would there be some interest in that? Yeah, I see some heads nodding. Maybe we can try to get that done because I know it's complicated. And I'm not saying we're necessarily going to fix that, but we're not trying to pull smoke and mirrors. Nobody's behind trying to be Oz behind the curtain. And the more educated that you are about our process, the better it helps us to be able to serve you through this process. So thank you for your participation, for those who are still here from the budgetary process. And I hope that we're able to move forward in a way that allows us all to feel as comfortable as possible with how we support the operation of our county.
Thank you, Commissioner. Bottom line is that this isn't Washington. We can't borrow our way out of problems. We have to have a balanced budget, and that's what we have. But I get the commissioner's comments, and I was serious about Ray, asking Ray to help us out. I think it's a great idea. I think we can make some, generally, bring all the information we have at the town halls when we're here and put them into a generalized chart. That might make the public understand what we're trying to do here. But I could not emphasize more. There's no smoke and mirrors here. This is hard work that the board has been working with since Christmas time to put together these numbers. And we've certainly committed to open and transparent government. Trying to simplify a $900 million budget has its challenge in itself, but we hear the message and we'll see what we can do before the next public hearing, which I believe is next week. Just two small things. First of all, I want to thank the public for a safe 4th of July weekend. I found it extraordinary that we had all the activities we had in Cobb County, and I don't believe I got one text from the police, Sheriff Cox, or from Chief Cox, Chief Cox, and also from Chief Register about a major incident in the county. That says a lot about the people in this county, and also about all the elements of the county staff working together to provide a place where we can safely work, live, play, and pursue our dreams. And the second one, today I'm reminded that I'm a geezer. My oldest grandson is 15 years old today. I have a grandson who's a teenager that's about to drive. So yes, these are genuine white hairs. I'm that old. So with that, we're adjourned. Have a safe week.
you.